welcome to Caretaker's Corner, where we discuss everything that has to do with caretaking for our elderly and disabled parents, our disabled spouses, and our adult disabled children. My name is CJ, and I am continuing the series on lessons I've learned through caretaking. So in the last one, I discussed about planning for your own retirement, or my own retirement, because I honestly, up until I had to take care of my dad, and really, I took care of my in-laws, and it never once dawned on me about planning for my own retirement. We were in the middle of the great financial crisis, that was through all of that, and retirement was the least important thing on my mind at that point. But then when I started taking care of my dad, and I started seeing my mom and my stepdad, and they were all living on very limited income, and they're having to make choices about how they were going to pay for their medicines, what kind of medicines they could be on. They're having to budget, phones and services that they need. And I'm seeing the struggle that they all had. With my dad, we had a particularly bad scare concerning cancer. And it turns out he didn't have it, but it was the medicine, the treatment was outrageously expensive. And of course, he's on Medicare. So Medicare wasn't going to cover it. And it was like one treatment, he had to do this multiple times a week, was like $24,000. And so he was a veteran. So we contacted VA, and we're able to get help that way. Plus, like I said, he ended up not having cancer, so we didn't have to worry about the treatments. But we did get a lot of help through the VA. So today what I'd like to discuss is what is the best age to retire at. Now, early retirement is like 62, I believe. Full retirement is like 65 and a half or 67 and a half. It depends on what your age is. And then I think the ideal, what the government obviously would like you to do, is wait as long as possible. So 70, I think, is what they suggest. So as I mentioned in my last video, the longer you wait to retire for Social Security purposes, the more your monthly Social Security check is. Also, the longer you're going to be on your group insurance, provided you have that at work, which insurance, for those folks that I know that are either retired or that are getting ready to retire, the insurance aspect is a big subject that they're having to deal with. I have one lady I know that she's going to go ahead and stick it out a couple more years at work just because of the insurance. So that is something that you need to plan for when you think about what age do you want to retire. The younger you retire, obviously, ideally, the healthier you are. But the older you retire, the more insurance is going to become an issue. And for that, something you might want to look into, now this is not, like I said previously, financial advice. I do not provide any kind of financial advice, nor do I provide any kind of medical advice. But an HSA is a way that you can save. You have to meet certain criteria, but you can save for later medical expenses. So, like if you have an FSA, which is what I have, that does not roll over. I have to have it all spent at the end of the year. Whereas if you have an HSA, you can continually roll that over till you hit a specific age. And I do not know what that age is. So one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, what age do you want to retire at? Do you want to take early retirement? Do you want to take later retirement? Now, you have certain retirement funds that you have to be a certain age to to be able to take withdrawals out of. I think your 401k, you have to be like 59 and a half maybe before you can take a withdrawal out of it for retirement purposes. So you'll want to think about, like I mentioned in the last video, you'll want to think about the different streams of income you have and how much money you can have coming in. If you take early retirement with Social Security, you're limited on how much money you can make outside of your Social Security. If you wait till full retirement age, then you can make, it's my understanding, as much money as you want and still get all of your Social Security without being taxed or extra taxed on it. So if you take early retirement with Social Security, then if you make over a certain amount of money, I think you have to start paying that back. So that's something to keep in mind also. If you really, really want to work and you like your job, then you might want to wait on retiring till you reach full retirement age. Some people are wondering, well, why would I want to wait? Let me retire early and take it and go. Well, what is your longevity? I mean, how long are you going to live? I know some people say that you should take your early retirement, take that money at 62 no matter what. That way you get most of your Social Security back and the government gets less and all of that matter. But like I said, you can only make so much money. So what are your bills and what are your other forms of income? Because if you can only make, and I do not know, I think right now somebody said it was like $22,000, which sounds like a lot of money to some people, but if you go back to the $4,000, $1,000 a week income, then that is $52,000 a year. So if you can only make $22,000, you better hope that your Social Security is bringing you in $30,000. I don't think it does with early retirement. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Run the numbers. Like I said, that when it comes to deciding when to retire, it really is a number game. If you're expected to live to, if your average life expectancy in your family is, say, mid-60s, maybe late 60s, you might want to think about early retirement so that you can go and do some things that you enjoy. That's a morbid way of looking at it, but it's just a fact of life. I know that in my family, the women in my family tend to make it to centenarians. So at this point, I'm 50. I'm about halfway through my life. If I work till 70, I still have another 30 years approximately. And also the women tend to have fairly good lives. My great aunt drove until she was 90 some odd years old and they took the keys away. Technically, I think she broke her leg and couldn't drive, but basically, yeah, took her keys away. So that's something you want to look at. If you've only got a life expectancy of 65, then retiring at 62 sounds great. And then, what's your work-life balance like? Do you like your job? Everybody yells about retirement and all this, but if you really like your job and you want to keep working, then go ahead and keep working. That is what's best for you. Work as long as you want. I've got people at work that are in their 70s. I hope they like their job and that's why they're working. They seem to like their job. So if you really like your job, just keep working. If that's what you really want to do. Don't make people force you into retirement. It's not something you have to do. You have to start making withdrawals out of your some of your different retirement accounts. I think by the age of 70 that they're mandatory withdrawals. But at 70, I mean, you can use that money for anything and cut back on your hours at work and still work like you want. So, I mean, you have that to look at too. Do what's best for you when it comes to planning on the retirement age. I think my dad may have retired a little early. I think he was past 62, but I'm not really for sure. I know that he didn't reach full retirement age because he had some issues in the beginning where he could only work so much. So obviously it wasn't full retirement. So that's just a few of the things you want to take into account when thinking about when is the best time to retire. If you want to do a lot of traveling, that might be something you want to do when you're younger. Also, a concept that has been started in the last, 10, 15 years is multiple retirements. So people are, quote unquote, retiring early. They're working, say, for 5 years. Then they take a year or two off in retirement in order to travel or do stuff that they want to do while they're younger. And then they go back to work and work for however long they want, and then they go out and do something else. That might be an option. Now, with that, though, you do not get to collect Social Security, and you actually will be penalized if you hit, like, your 401k or I'm not sure about different other kinds of accounts, but I know, like, 401k, you'll get penalized for that. But that is an option if you want to go and do stuff while you're still younger, and then go ahead and work and till you're older. That's one that recently I've been thinking about, given the situation I've got going on at work. You can always use it as an opportunity to go ahead and early retire, change careers, get educated, and start doing something else that you always wanted to do. I mean, these are things that you can take into account, because you're going to have, I mean, even if you're older and you're almost at 62, you still have a lot of options available to you. So really sitting down and just trying to come up with a plan, come up with a plan, just sit down, write out what you want. Write out, if you could do anything you ever wanted in this world, write it out and come up with a plan to be able to do that. And you could do that during your retirement. If you decide to take early retirement, that would be a way of doing stuff. But it will help you come up with a plan for figuring out when you want to retire. Like I said, I know from my parents and my in-laws and those around me that one of the most difficult decisions to make is what age to retire. And I know I've got people at work that they've changed that date several times. I've been at the same place for 9, almost 10 years, and I've got several people that have just continually moved that date out and out and out because situations arise where they just need to continue to work. I've had some that have actually just wanted to continue to work, that can perfectly retire anytime they want, but they've wanted to continue to work. I've got some that are continuing, like I said previously, because of insurance. So I hope these suggestions have helped you. I know it's a difficult subject to think about, your own retirement, but I think if we all looked at if you're taking care of parents, look at their situation and see how well they did. I mean, my grandmother retired, oh man, I was real little when she retired, my dad's mom, and it wasn't, and she was doing really well until later in life, and then we discovered that something, her money situation wasn't as good as she let us think it was. Once we were able to, my dad intervened and was able to contact the government and get some things rearranged. She was living a lot more comfortably because my grandpa was a retired military. So that made a big difference in everything. But look at your parents. Look at your parents' finances. Look at your parents' medical situations. Look at their insurance situations. Do you want a similar situation, or do you want yours to be totally different? I love my parents to death. I do not want their retirement. And so I am taking the steps to make my retirement the way I would like it to be, the way I know they wish their retirement was. So I hope this has helped you, and take that time to sit down and write out that list. Write out those plans, and that way it will truly make a difference later in life. Like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.